For plebs, by plebs, dropping the Bitcoin-only signal. Pleb Underground. Welcome everyone to the Pleb Underground.
Pleb Underground, 92 old, spent all week spitting, but with the flu cold, hot and cold, so chose italic, but my true bold. Redshift while approaching will soon blue gold. This will be tough. I'm not feeling 100. 1 million sats. Cough. I want 100. That's 10 to the 9 sats. Some say a lot of bread. Be hungry. Get after it. What I tell them instead. Sometimes I wonder, are our viewers sat at home, taking time to decompress, foam at the mouth for the chance to roam free, express it all, not fake like Mo Mur. Freshly scripted, my writing style. Friday afternoon, it's time to compile the flow of the week. I have to reconcile my mosaic of thoughts, arrange each and every tile. Monet has always been about making an impression, so make money, even in a recession. Stay cash flow positive to avoid the depression. I'm in the rare faction. Don't feel the compression. I don't feel compressed, but always under pressure. My rhymes like each subsidy, just mine, none fresher. Hodl your Bitcoin, it's family treasure. Sats don't exist, they're just a measure. I like my money to be orange, not green. No continued cantillon, an effect that's obscene. Be a real stand-up guy like my guy Bitstein, where now at the end, she loves this bit scene.
Walton, you're a serious trooper, man. We appreciate it. We appreciate it. Absolutely awesome rhyme. And guys, if you didn't understand who is joining us, we've got Bitstein. Dude, thank you so much for joining us on Pleb Underground, man. This is an honor.
Howdy. Thank you so much for having me.
Sweet. All right, let's dive right into it. We are going to move it on over to the numbers.
Yeah, the numbers, of course, brought to us by TimeChain Stats and TimeChain Calendar. What do the numbers look like this week, Phil?
At the time of this recording, the block height is 848,925. The Bitcoin fiat exchange, 63,483. Big Macs to BTC, 12,326. All right, we're holding steady, guys. Lots of Big Macs. Total public Lightning capacity, 5,119. Fastest fee, 44 sats per VByte. Moscow time, 1575. Boom. All right, we're holding steady. I don't think we really care. Bitstein, any insight into the numbers I just read? How are you feeling these days?
The blocks just keep coming.
That's pretty much it.
It's amazing.
Isn't it? Everybody can say whatever they want. You can have all the noise in the world.
Every 10 minutes is a cause for celebration.
That's right. Every 10 minutes we know something is true. All right, let's move it to our first numbers article. Let's go. All right, let's start it off. Here we go. Tweet from @TylerDidIt. Well, yeah, that's right, guys. You know, this week, for the people that actually, get emotional about the Bitcoin fiat exchange prices, here you go. Here's maybe an answer. Now we know who's been selling the ancient BTC whales. And Bitstein, I'm very curious as to if you know who the ancient BTC whales are, to the tune of billions, okay? So this is kind of, it's a bit FUD, okay? On-chain data shows that long-term BTC whales have sold a whopping $1.2 billion worth of BTC. That's $1.2 billion USD. That's not really, not gonna lie, it's not that much. Anyways, literally an unprecedented amount of selling according to the crypto quant. So 1.2 billion in the past 2 weeks. What do we think? What do we think of these numbers? Do we really care? When I first read that, I was like, at first, right? My initial gut reaction, I'm like, oh, that explains it. And then I was like, wait a second. It's $1.2 billion worth of Bitcoin. It's not that much. Thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, someone has to be selling. You know, whenever I see this, like, I don't know these ancient whales.
Was that a confession? I think that was a confession. Someone's got to be selling.
It's like, you just made me think of that GIF, you know, with the monkey with the eyes going back and forth.
Oh yeah. But like, you know, I don't know how exactly how they determine who's who in this. But look, I don't know them, and no, they sold, so I don't know if I do want to know them.
Right?
But you know, as far as maybe that's what was making the price go down. I don't know. I do think people often forget that the price is set by just whoever's buying and selling at the moment, they have a big effect on this. And Bitcoin is still relatively small, so maybe it was as simple as a guy pulling out 1.2 billion and selling it. I've just always I'm always focused on the long term, so it's just like I don't even see these things.
The, the, this just reminds me that like there's so many Bitcoiners that okay, they found Bitcoin. Bitcoin's really good. That's a good decision, like saving Bitcoin. Okay, but like they don't understand markets, that liquidity pools are interconnected, and I'm not talking shitcoinery here. I'm just talking about like markets are interconnected, right? Like that, it's Bitcoin trades in probably hundreds of currencies around the world, 365 days a year, 24 hours a day. Like to think, and it's the most liquid thing in the world. So to think that it's not going to move at times is naive at best. You want it to move. You want volatility. Strap in.
Yeah. I mean, in all honesty, like, look, just the discussion we're having here makes that number seem so much even less significant as we continue. I mean, like, it's like, really? Markets all around the world and $1.2 billion worth shifted? Like, meh. I kind of think it's a bit of a nothing burger, but to Bitstein's point, right? We are still a fairly small market. We've all seen that chart of all the of all the balloons and the markets, and Bitcoin's all the way at the bottom. This tiny little blip. So anyways,
I always like, in moments like this, reminding people too that we're having this discussion at all about price going down to $63,000. Which is I can't even comprehend that number.
I remember when it pumped when I was flying out to Madeira. This was like the beginning of March. That's when it just pumped to that sort of number, and we were giddy about those sorts of numbers. Yeah, like
this is ridiculous.
This crazy zoom out, people. Like this crazy recency bias when it comes to price.
Absolutely. Okay, we're gonna move it to the next numbers article.
Hyper Bitcoinization is real.
It is real. It is. And actually, you know what? It's good that you bring that up, because I kind of feel like this whole entire process is hyper Bitcoinization, right? Like, people always look for like this specific line in the sand, and maybe we'll discuss it more when on the fireside chat. But I definitely also want to get your takes on that. So, okay, let's take a look at this though. I don't know, Bitstein, if you're familiar with these tiny little BitAx devices that are just totally destroying the solo miner market, right? They're flipping it on its head, making it possible for any one of us to mine. Anyways, let's dive into it. This account, Off-Grid, ROI with BitAx on Brainspool. All right, look, he's getting about 50 Satoshis per day, 1,500 sats a month, or 18,000 sats per year. So approximately $12 a year. Would break even in 15 years at current Bitcoin prices. But I believe Bitcoin price will go up. And that's right, guys. $12 a year. So look, those miners, they cost about, depending on where you live, between like $2 to $5 a month to run. I have one here. And you know what? I opt for the solo mining, right? I opted for the CK pool, to go with the lottery. What do you guys think? Do you think it's worth it to do this? And like, not necessarily just looking at the monetary.
The Hopium segment.
Is that what
when I see numbers like that, every time someone gets into Bitcoin, one of their first questions is, "How do I mine Bitcoin?" And I've never understood it. I've never been a miner. I didn't I when I first installed Bitcoin, I did not see the mining button. It may or may not have still been in the software when I first did it and had no clue what it was. So I've never mined. But every time I've thought about it, it's just like, if whatever you're going to spend that on, just buy the Bitcoin. It seems you have way less risk. it just seems obvious to me. I don't know. I don't have it in me to want to be chasing after cheap electricity and all that. I think there's a novelty aspect to it, and I respect the fact that you put it on solo mining, because if you're gonna enjoy a cheap little novelty, you might as well have a lot of fun with it, because there is always that infinitesimally small chance that you win, and that is a historic flex that you will be able to carry with you. Your descendants, great 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 grandchildren will look back fondly on Coin Icarus, their ancestor who solo mined with one of those. So it's like, okay, that's like at least fun as a novelty. But yeah, beyond that, I don't think that people should get into mining unless they have very good access to very cheap electricity and good chips, and otherwise they should just focus on mining fiat by going and getting a job and delivering value and turning that value into Bitcoin.
Very well said. Let me ask you this though. What are your thoughts on I guess the narrative that using these miners is or purchasing something like this, besides the ROI impossibility or very near impossibility, as a learning gateway into Bitcoin, right? Getting more comfortable with understanding the network and whatnot. So I guess from more like the tinkerer aspect, because
Yeah, I haven't seen as much of that, and typically the people who are asking me about these things are not even technical people. Otherwise, it really could be fun to tell them, hey, here are the things you would want to do to write a Python script that actually does the mining. If you're really interested in understanding mining, you can go in and write that yourself and learn how the hashing works and so on and so forth. But it's not usually technical people. So for a non-technical person who's getting into it, I don't know if they're really dead set on mining, maybe that's interesting. But typically I'd probably just encourage them to spend that time doing something else. It might be like they go learn about mining. You should understand how mining works. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I kind of like, from that perspective, if it is that cheap, part of me as just a interested person, it's like, I haven't done mining before. It would be cool just to have it just for my own learning sake. I'm always learning more about Bitcoin. So for me, I mean, let me put it this way. I do think that could be a really cool learning device. The specific target audience for that, I don't know who specifically that would be, but most people, I don't suspect that that's going to be their entrance into Bitcoin. So
yeah, I can't disagree with that either. Definitely can. Walton, what are your thoughts before we wrap up the numbers? Are you into? Do you buy the BitAxe story? You know me. I like this kind of stuff. So
these guys. I really like the guys. There's some guys. I don't remember what they're called. It's called like Solo Mining Company. They're a UK distributor of BitAxe, and they came to the London meetup. I don't know, a couple of months ago. And they said, they led this. There's a promise of decentralizing mining, and if a million people run one of these, then that's half the network's hash rate. And I'm like, how much are they? He's like, and I want to say he said it was like £50 or £60 or something like that. And so, me being the numbers guy, like, I'm going to run the numbers there and then in my head and work out, like, what's the payback on this? So they're saying you get 40 sats a day, or like 30 to 40 sats a day. Right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's just go with 40 sats a day. I worked out it would take like 8 to 9 years to get your sats back, and that's not including your cost of electricity. It's not including the global hash rate increasing. It's not including the fact that there will be multiple halvings or any halvings in that time. Like BitAxe, I love the concept, but you be aware this is not mining for profit. This is a lottery game. If you want to play it, good luck to you. I hope you win. But that is the reality of the numbers when it comes to the BitAxe.
If you're doing learning, I do recommend you put it on wrench test or signet mode instead of trying to play with that. How long would it take just to get above the dust limit?
I mean, I think there are some lightning pools now, right? But still.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you see, this is exactly why I didn't bother doing it that way, and this is why I went for the lottery. And just to finish it up on this, there's at the current hash rate that I have right now, because I have 3 of these. I have a nerd miner, I have a BitAxe, and I have that. I think it's either the Avalon or the Apollo or the Canaan one. Anyways, whatever. 1 in 4,000. I'm averaging it like 1. Let's say in a year, I have a 1 in 4,000 something chance of mining a block, which means it would take me approximately 4,000 years or something.
Wait, what are the odds of winning per day?
In a year, per day, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like 39 million something.
Okay,
so like 390 million or something like that.
It's insane. Certainly in the UK, the chance of winning the national lottery is like 1 in 14 million or something like that. But then like the chance of getting hit by lightning is like 1 in 500,000. How many people get hit by lightning? So
exactly. So exactly, it's so guys, like you heard it, right? Like unless you realize that you're getting something, right, that you're buying something that's most likely just going to be some fun, or like Bitstein said, going to be a novelty, like you should just buy Bitcoin, like even though I didn't do it with that money, I went and bought those devices, but I understand it's a novelty, and that's why I kind of have it in lottery mode. Anyways, guys, let us know what you think. Did you Sorry,
well, just one last comment, if you don't mind, is for anyone listening who does want to find a way to decentralize mining, rather than making a little miner like this, might I suggest building nuclear reactors in your garage? If we could make nuclear reactors that Bitcoiners could have in their garages, that's going to decentralize mining.
So right now, Rolls-Royce are wanting to develop small nuclear reactors. There's currently a plot to orange pill them from some people in the UK.
That is one of the most awesome things I've heard in a while.
Yeah.
Let's make those nuclear reactors great again.
Right, because again, it's just like being that initial buyer of energy, like it's a very scalable initial buyer of energy. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think this is the problem with things like energy is there's just so much regulation, and regulation enables corruption, right?
Hey, you're the PlebUnderground.
It's true. We should be figuring this out. This is what he's doing. He's kind of
you don't have to
pointing
tell
out
them
that we should be figuring
it.
this out. Don't tell them about it.
They don't have to know. Just I'm sure the spy satellites would be able to pick up some markers, but
just a few.
Just have your secret nuclear reactor. It's just...
Who doesn't have uranium?
And this is the Chernobyl room.
All right, guys, we're leaving the Chernobyl room, and that's right, we're wrapping up the numbers. That does it, and we are going to move it on over to the Fireside Chat. The Fireside Chat is brought to you by CypherSafe. Check them out at cyphersafe.io. That's right, guys. The pet rock enjoyer's favorite gift, 16 ounces of solid titanium. Beautiful craftsmanship. The Bitcoin Rolo Triangle, only at cyphersafe.io. Welcome back, everyone. The Fireside Chat. You know who we've got here joining us. You know who's in the hot seat. We've got Bitstein. And dude, we were talking before the show, and as I told you, your podcast with Pierre, Noted, was very instrumental in my learning about Bitcoin and going down the rabbit hole. I listen to it every single day on the way to and from work. I listen to every single one of your episodes. You guys are absolutely awesome. And yeah, that's how I want to
Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
It's kind of become a cult classic.
It is. And
in some ways it like helps. It's like you really pin down, you know, when someone got into Bitcoin and stuff like that based on that. So it's a good selection filter.
yeah, I got to agree. And of course, I mean the other the other cult classic I would say is everyone's a scammer. But look, before we get into that, you Pierre, and Daniel, I guess was it all three of you that founded the Nakamoto Institute?
Effectively, yeah.
Effectively, okay.
I would say I was basically the I've kind of always been the main person. But we were all a good friend group then, and we got together and yeah, we made that. It was in November 2013. It's quite a while ago now.
So why? So let me. I mean, you know, and again, that website also was absolutely instrumental in, first of all, me understanding why BCH was not Bitcoin. It was also integral for me in understanding why Craig Wright was not Satoshi. Because I was able to essentially compare the writings that you had in the Nakamoto Institute, right from the BitcoinTalk.org forums, and compare that to this person on stage that's an absolute caveman. That's cosplaying. So
you noticed that Satoshi was a literate individual.
I did. It was pretty crazy. So I got to ask you guys, like, what is it that got you to start it? Like, why did you start the Nakamoto Institute?
Well, so I had learned about Bitcoin in 2011 from Daniel, but it was going through its bubble, and I watched it go up, I watched it go down, and then forgot about it. It didn't really click with me. But then in late 2012, it finally did. Someone described it as basically digital gold. And that clicked with me, having come from a background of studying Austrian economics for many years in late high school and college. And so that made everything click, and I've been obsessed since that day. And that same time, I was hearing about the cypherpunks in new light from a different direction than I had previously. I had always had, you know, respect for the Julian Assanges and guys like him, you know, Tor project, stuff like that. But this was the first that I was really getting a sense of guys like Timothy May and Hal Finney and so on and so forth. That came at the whole issue with a more explicitly anarcho-capitalist bent, which resonated with me greatly. So I was learning about all of that and just going deep down the rabbit hole. Back then, it was you know there wasn't the Nakamoto Institute for me to look up, and so I was having to, you know, just dive in wherever I could and find this stuff. And I'm just naturally the kind of person who, when I'm finding these, I like to share it with people. And so I think it was in, I don't remember what at what point in 2013, but I was actually standing with Tur de Meester. He had been in Austin for something, and we were just chatting. It was the first time we met, and we were joking about this idea of how, you know, there's a Ludwig von Mises Institute for Austrian economics. There should be a Satoshi Nakamoto Institute for Bitcoin, and that stuck with me. You know, having that little back and forth, and by I think I may have bought the domain in like August or something, and then in November 2013 is when I started actually populating things. I actually think if I remember correctly, I may have had stuff up before then, but November 2013 was kind of like the real beginning. But it was basically this way of like finding all of this information and making sure that it you know, remained in the light of day, because a lot of this is it's a lot of forgotten stuff. Even today, as big as our library might seem, it's barely scratching the surface on a whole range of intellectual traditions out there. So, there's a lot of work on my part to be done to get more of that out. But I wanted to make sure that that stuff was being seen and understood, because at the time, and we still kind of see it today. But early on, Bitcoin is a smaller thing, and in some ways, it feels like it matters more. Which is people were coming in and wanting to make Bitcoin respectable. And by respectable, they mean, oh, the powers that be should not, fear this, or, whatever. It's like trying to change these sort of core ethos of it, rather than, just showing that that's going to just be a part of this world and you need to deal with it,
Mhm.
which is more my attitude. Um, and yeah, so you had people wanting to promote that in Silicon Valley. So they were saying, "Oh, well, Bitcoin's not really this libertarian thing. That was just some of the crazies at the beginning." Or people trying to present it to banks as this thing that the banks could control, which I'm sure we'll get to some related topics to that later on. But it's like, no, this is our thing, and it's happening, and you can't change it. The banks don't get to control it. That's the whole point. And so a lot of this was, how do I teach people about this so they can see where Bitcoin was coming from and try to actually understand Bitcoin within this context. But also, just make sure that that stayed there. So even if you had these people saying that, there was always available the alternative position on it, where you could actually just go and read for yourself that there is this intellectual tradition of the cypherpunks, of the crypto anarchists, of the Austrian economists, and so on and so forth. All these things that kind of either directly or indirectly played a role in the development and the reasons for Bitcoin's success. It would be there for people to study, and just make sure that remained there. And so that was sort of the motive at the beginning.
Absolutely awesome, man. I really appreciate you explaining that. And to the point of people trying to to make I guess you'd say Bitcoin respectable, right? Because we are going to talk about. I definitely want to get your take about the ETFs. But before we get into that, everyone's a scammer.
It's
That
true.
it's well, I'm obviously referencing your work. Your work for me, like I said, I introduce that work to people before I even tell them to read the white paper. I'm like, even before you read the Bitcoin white paper, you should be reading Everyone's a Scammer. And
I tell everyone that Bitcoin books are a scam. Like, maybe it's not everyone, but like some people are like, hey, but what about advancing Bitcoin? And I'm like, yeah, but the book's not a scam, but the author.
you see, and so that's why it's like that work that you wrote was
Sorry, I
just
misspoke. I said advancing. I meant mastering. Apologies.
I was gonna say I understood. Yeah. Well, hopefully the audience got it, but anyways. So Everyone's a Scammer. How did you come up with that? Like, how did that even come into being? And like, was that a product of you entering the Bitcoin space and seeing the dynamics between the different players?
Well, so if you notice, like, the actual raw scam, of sorts, where it's like straight up Ponzi stuff, that takes up just like kind of the opening paragraph or
Hmm.
whatever. It's actually a kind of minor point in the article. So yes, there was a lot of that, but that was kind of it was sort of, that's obvious. Like, oh yes, like stay away from that. All the other stuff is a little less obvious to a total newcomer. So I would say, the origins of that article, we had been developing our kind of theory around Bitcoin over the course of 2013 through I would say like 2015 was where like the real core ideas, and that article was written in uh kind of mid to late 2014. So we had already established a lot of our ideas around kind of our thesis about what makes Bitcoin good money, why we expect it to grow, why we expect that to mean a total global dominance of as a world reserve currency and so on and so forth. And within that included a lot of arguments, such as there's an old article. I'm hoarding bitcoins and no, you can't have any. And that was sort of, our way, Daniel put it into words, but it's like our way of explaining how it's not the spending of Bitcoin that gives rise to like the increase in Bitcoin price and adoption and such. Like, it's, which isn't to say that it's bad, like, you're a bad person for spending, but just in economic terms, like what grows the Bitcoin economy is that people are demanding it. That is, they want to receive Bitcoin and they want to hold Bitcoin. And that's actually sort of more conducive to economic growth of the Bitcoin economy than just spending. Because spending, you give it to someone else and then they just give it away, and that actually just has the price going down. And then you don't have Bitcoin anymore, and all you got was like the good feeling of having spent Bitcoin. So it's kind of it can easily turn into a tragic story for you as the once Bitcoiner. So we had tried to say that, and it was today people, like, hodling is sort of seen as a sort of default thing. There's always the people they want to promote different ways of engaging the market, and there's different ways that I have different feelings on, but I broadly just support whatever economically works for people. I just want to make sure that the economic theory is sound when people are describing what's happening. So with all of that being said, we had developed this idea that Bitcoin was going to be the global reserve currency. And if that's the case, any attempt to, or sorry, anything that's going to inspire you to give away your Bitcoin is almost like necessarily a scam, in the sense of, my assumption, and which could of course be wrong, for everyone's going to have all their little exceptions, but my assumption is that it's against your long-term interest to give up something that you think is going to be the global reserve currency, and there's only 21 million of them. You're necessarily talking about such a great increase in price that it's unlikely that any of your short-term gains from acquiring some other thing is going to make you better off than if you just held the Bitcoin. And so the point of the article was to try to get that across, to think deeply about your long-term interests, and see how different things that are promoted in the market. So in this case, whether it's people, merchants accepting Bitcoin, therefore you should go spend your Bitcoin, or people offering some new technology that actually you should, divest your Bitcoin away from that to invest in, whatever new project is out there, or just people trying to buy Bitcoin off you. How each of these is potentially pitting your short-term interests against your long-term interests, and that you should really think carefully about what you really want in the long run, because this thing is also, there are no brakes, there are no backsies, and so you have the obligation to be making very clear and uh, you know, uh, prudent decision making that includes as much foresight as possible. So my conclusion is that you should default assume something is a scam, treat everything as if it's a scam until you have reason to do otherwise.
So one part, I really appreciate you explaining it. One part, as you were explaining that, though, I couldn't help but think to myself, I'm like, I know that there's one part in it where you explain how the hodler is actually one of the biggest scammers.
Oh, yes.
Because they want you to sell your Bitcoin down so that they can have more of it. And it's like, okay, so let me ask you this. Is there any condition, right, where someone is not a scammer? Because I know you said everyone's a scammer, but
Everyone.
now we're years later. Is everyone still a scammer?
I mean, I think it all still holds. But of course, at the end it says scammer is a heuristic, not an accusation.
Yes.
This is not meant to, be pointing fingers at people and saying, you belong in jail, or something like that. It's meant to it's more about your personal disposition rather than accusation towards others. And so for a lot of people, at this point, if someone was, I was a broke college kid back then, so I even this was, a lot of it was just me being fantastical in the sense of just having hopes and dreams of things that I didn't even have as much access to at the time. But just we were just talking about ancient whales, right? There could be someone out there who they've been holding for like 14, 15 years now. They were literally mining in like 2009 or 2010, and they have a ton of Bitcoin, and they can go and spend a small proportion on that to get a house for their family that is beyond anything they could have dreamt of before Bitcoin.
Yep.
And something like that, that person might very well look at that investment and say, yeah, from a monetary perspective, this thing is not going to beat Bitcoin. It's like it simply won't. However, I value my ability to house my family in this place way more than whatever that extra gain would have been, because I want that right here and now. No one can have a time preference of 0. And so for that person, they are actually following my article in the sense of they're taking very seriously the long-term potential, but they are recognizing that even with that long-term potential, I am getting what it is that I truly value. And so this article is a call for people to find what is it in life that you truly value, so that when you give up your Bitcoins, something that you might not be able to ever get back, you're doing it without regret, and knowing that you are getting something extremely special. And I think it's the process of people doing that on a societal scale that is how you have a flourishing civilization, is people finding what they truly value and putting that's where they put their wealth. And
Isn't it time? I don't mean isn't it about time. I mean, like, isn't it time, the thing that people value or should value? Like the you see a lot of people, I don't know, realizing later in life that like they've amassed various things, but the thing that they wish they'd done is spend more time with their loved ones.
Yeah, I mean, time is probably the one thing that is scarcer than Bitcoin.
Correct. It's the only your own time is the only thing that's more scarce than Bitcoin, to you at least, right? Maybe not to humanity, but to you, you can never get more of your own time. You can always get more Bitcoin. It'll cost you more, maybe, but you can always get more Bitcoin, like even Sailor, but you can't get more time.
Yes. And so I think that people should take that seriously. And even then, I mean, they might start to find other ways of, it's like, well, I don't want to sell my Bitcoin, but this has also made me realize I value my time in this way. So I'm changing, the way that I'm spending money at all to rearrange my life, and having all of that Bitcoin and having that future potential with it gives me a bigger cushion that allows me to take on more risks in the short term because of that fact. It's like because I know that that's there. I don't have to slave away as much at a job that I don't like, and I can still remain as comfortable and have more time to do what I want while also holding on to my Bitcoin. So there's a huge spectrum of possibilities there. But I fully agree. It's like you should be thinking about what is it that you want to do with your time on Earth. And a lot of the things that people spend money on, value is subjective, et cetera, et cetera. But I don't think that people actually spend their money in the most prudent of way towards those goals. But when you have such an extreme opportunity cost of Bitcoin that really puts every single one of your subjective values
Yep.
into perspective, so that you can really think like, do I care about this or not? Is this actually a good use of my time or not? And for that, I mean, Bitcoin is what an opportunity to engage in that kind of self introspection.
Oh, absolutely. And having read and listened to Everyone's a Scammer several times, I began to think that it's kind of like a reflection on the human condition and our kind of like becoming mindful of our conscious incentives as well as kind of our unconscious incentives, right? It all of a sudden puts this stuff under a microscope. So I really appreciate that.
That's a really cool point, because there are so many things. I mean, stuff that you might have some habit. It's just not even necessarily a vice per se, but you just have some habit that sort of has become a background script in your life of just like every day I go and I spend $5 on this coffee, I really like it or whatever, and then you start thinking about Bitcoin, and then it's like, wait, hold on. Like, it becomes from this background script into the front. It's like, wait a second, is this really like what I want? This is my life. This is my Shangri-La, is getting this like coffee every day. And so it really does force literally everything into perspective. And I think that's it's a very good thing. And we should take that seriously. We should also be thankful for that opportunity. It's a very unique opportunity that we get to have.
Ridding you of the need to bribe your nervous system on a daily basis. That sounds like a good reason to adopt Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It really fixes
Exactly.
everything.
The dopamine fix. On the same, I mean, we're going to stay on the Everyone's a Scammer, but we're going to pivot a bit because I want to get your thoughts on essentially the Bitcoin ETFs. Like, I know how long you've been in this space, and I mean, you've seen it. You've seen Bitcoin grow. We've seen Bitcoin grow, and at this point, right? Like, we always, in my eyes, and not just my eyes, but many Bitcoiners always believe that Bitcoin is the Trojan horse, right? Like, we're going to show up in the financial system, and as we know, you don't change Bitcoin; Bitcoin changes you. And now we fast forward, as you know, we've got all these Bitcoin ETFs. These billions of dollars have been pouring into Bitcoin. Larry Fink's looking like a genius, right? BlackRock is doing great, and essentially, I would say the institutions have arrived and they are here. Do you still think, right, that that Bitcoin is the Trojan horse? Because right now we are kind of seeing a bit of a switch in narratives, even from like shitcoiners, where they're just like, oh well, Bitcoin doesn't matter anymore. It's just captured. Right, it's captured by the financial system, and I mean, obviously, I don't agree with that take. But I just want to know, what are your thoughts? Like, is that?
Well, I do take
still the
umbrage of
Trojan
this
horse?
idea of the institutions are here because BlackRock, because like the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute has been here since November 2013. The institutions have were very old institutions, but no. As far as
It's true.
as far as the Trojan horse, no, Bitcoin has not been captured. Bitcoin is capturing Wall Street. They Bitcoiners in control. Look, I don't think that having money in an ETF is the best way to be holding Bitcoin. In part because
Really?
you're not holding Bitcoin. Yeah, so it's like, yeah, you should obviously, like, everyone should be trying to hold their own keys, run their own node, all of that stuff. That being said, a lot of this economy is, for better or worse, for worse, stuck in fiat accounts that cannot just easily break free. There's a lot of various kind of institutional, both regulatory and corporate governance reasons why it is simply not easy for money to just go on that. Like I actually like, I have to have a little humility when I hear Michael Saylor saying like, oh yeah, we use these custodians.
The
I don't.
point of Bitcoin was to remove custodians. It's like it solves the custody issue, and then you're gonna have
but at the
custody.
same time, like, if I'm running a big corporation, there's a lot of you know, take the regulatory stuff out of it. As a corporation, you have a lot of internal rules and regulations of how
Okay.
you run, separations of concerns and powers and stuff like that, such that there might not yet actually be a good way to hold the money. So it's like Michael Saylor, should he just have like a cold card in his desk? Like, it's there's
No,
a
you
lot
should
of
use multi-sig,
questions.
but
Yeah, but I think you get my point. Is like,
no, I
Yeah.
do get the point.
there's a lot of questions that have to still be solved for that. And my hope is that as time goes on, we find more solutions such that every individual and every organization is moving more towards the way of dealing with Bitcoin that has the most sovereignty for them. But in the meantime, there is a lot of money that is stuck in accounts that can't easily get out. All of the 401ks, all of these the institutional money that, because of both government and internal regulations that have not adapted to Bitcoin, have certain rules about what they can and can't invest those funds in, and so on and so forth. And so I like the ETFs for the fact that all of those people can improve the status quo by pointing all of that at Bitcoin. And it's all of the pipes are there for them on pretty much every reputable TradFi thing. You can do that. Unfortunately, Vanguard has lost the mantle on reputable because of this, but you know, people can do that. And I think an important thing to think about is, what is money doing in the first place? And money is a hedge against future uncertainty. We're always trying to
Mhm.
deal with what are all the different uncertainties in life, such that at any given time we're better off holding a medium of exchange than a more particular, capital good
Tangible.
or consumer good or whatever. And
Is it more about like you think it's more about the like degradation factor than the fact that you don't have to like you don't need the other person to want whatever product you're holding instead? Is it not more about like a compatibility issue for trade?
Maybe it's
well,
a bit of
I
both.
think that is a type of uncertainty.
Mhm.
So like,
Fair.
you basically do I know, like, if I have, just think of the barter situation. It's like I have a bunch of apples, someone else has bananas, et cetera, et cetera. I have to deal with the uncertainty, the double coincidence of wants, that they want apples and I want bananas. And,
Exactly.
and so that's a type of uncertainty that people have to overcome. And there's a whole bunch of different uncertainties of both space and time and scale that people have to deal with. For the people who have this money in fiat accounts, now are they overcoming the uncertainties that are guaranteed by running a full node and holding keys? Absolutely not. And that is, potentially a huge problem for them in the future. But in the meantime, they still have this uncertainty of, how do I save for the next 10, 15, 20 years, and so on and so forth.
Oh,
And basically the sort of store of value, so to speak, uncertainty. And for those people, this is legitimately solving it. And it's doing so because it is Bitcoin. So I like that. I don't recommend that people put money that isn't stuck in some fiat, jail of sorts, like some fiat account jail. I don't think money outside of that should be going into these. But for money that is in that, that is a real uncertainty. It's actually the most pertinent uncertainty. It's the one that actually worries people the most. People are less concerned about the government actually coming and physically taking their money than they are about the fact that they go to the grocery store and every time the prices have gone up, and so on and so forth. Or that you have companies with large treasuries, they already have their money sitting in a place that it can all be stolen. But what they don't have is a way to keep that capital from just depreciating 20% every
yes.
single year. And so that is a serious uncertainty. And it's one that costs the economy as a whole unspeakable amounts of money, because people don't think
And
like,
energy.
And
yes,
I think the bigger thing here, though, is about like it's not just the capital that disappears; it's the like will to work by these people. And I'm speaking from
Yeah.
personal experience here. Like Bitcoin, I was a saver that then felt like I couldn't save, so spent my money on things like holidays because I'm like, well, real estate's going like this, my money's going like this. I guess I better just live life, right? And then, oh wait, I've got this
yes.
thing that I can actually save in again. Oh well, then I might do that, and actually I might try and work more because now, like, the energy that I put into work can be saved properly. And I
I'm
think
just
that's
being
a
like,
massively under, like, like a huge factor that people
yes,
don't realize.
yes, absolutely agree. And that really does actually bother every single individual and organization on the planet, um, more than the uncertainty of is someone going to steal something. Now,
Yeah.
I think that should also be a concern. And many people learn that the hard way, and I wish they wouldn't have to learn it the hard way. So I see it as it's a stepping stone for those people. It's like, okay, well, let's your biggest concern right now is inflation. Let's fix that. Now that we fix that, what's the next thing that we can fix? And we work people up the chain towards finding the best way of dealing with all of the potential uncertainties, which you're not going to be able to do without running a node, without holding your keys, and so on and so forth. Um, I hate to be like a sailor guy, but it's like when these topics come up, I can't help but think of the Sailorisms of Bitcoin is hope. What you described there of just might as well, like, it's this feeling of giving up. Well, what is the opposite of hope? The opposite of hope is effectively despair. It's the feeling that there is no future. There is no hope. The future is necessarily going to be bad, no matter what it is that I do. And when people are stuck in that such situation, they need hope first and foremost. And just being able to fix inflation is such a massive win for the economy. And by the economy, I mean all of the people that make up that economy. That being able to have the hope just from having a sound money is so big, that I don't think that we should underappreciate it. Now, the other thing to realize is that everyone's winning off Bitcoin. So we're watching Wall Street suddenly be Bitcoin bulls, and they speak of Bitcoin in the way that we speak of Bitcoin, not as based, but in terms of these kinds of points about savings and store of value and like all of these things that we've been trying to push on people. Wall Street has capitulated and is speaking our game on that as well. And when those businesses start finding themselves more and more invested in Bitcoin, they have more and more reasons to protect it and keep it going. Keep it doing what it's doing. And so that doesn't mean that there's not going to be bad actors, people making bad choices, etc. But it does introduce a very hopeful and optimistic set of incentives. That No, I think we're actually it is the sort of Trojan horse. I think we're capturing Wall Street, and Wall Street is making this giant tectonic shift from being captured by the dollar and all of the incentives of the dollar to captured by Bitcoin and focused instead of on cheap, easy money and lots of debt, being focused on acquiring hard assets and saving for the future. And I think that could have massive social ramifications, that is broadly good for everyone involved, including Wall Street, even if they are not otherwise my friends, because Bitcoin is for enemies. It's permissionless. Those people are going to buy, and I think that they're just going to become more like Bitcoiners as they become Bitcoiners.
Very well said, man. Very, very well said. And this actually is going to wrap up the Fireside chat. But before we move on to the next segment, Bitstein, how can people find you?
Oh,
What's the best way to reach you?
best way to find me is on Twitter or X, I guess as it's known now. Bitstein, Bitstein. I'm also on Noster. Primal.net/Bitstein is probably the easiest way to find me on there. Because I don't want to like, yeah, just okay. So
has a discoverability problem.
NPU, but no, so I'm on that, and of course, finding the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute at nakamotoinstitute.org, and we are also on X and Noster as well. So you should be able to find us by searching.
Sweet. We're gonna put we're gonna put all of that in the show notes, guys. This wraps up the Fireside Chat, and we're gonna move it on over to REKT.
Up next, we have REKT, sponsored by BTC Pins. BTC Pins making the finest high-quality metal pins in the Bitcoin business. On my hat, you see Ahmed, Get the Stones, PlebUnderground, and the Zeus pin representing somewhere also on the screen. You can see the Honey Badger. If you go to btcpins.com and use the code PLEB, you will get a discount on the pins. Once again, that's btcpins.com. Welcome back to REKT, where this week we have people who have legally been word like who've been in jail for fraud, deciding to do more fraud. What am I talking about? I'm talking about Shkreli, right? It's David Bailey saying that Martin Shkreli is about to single-handedly change 100 years of securities law. One tweet from Barron, and this whole situation becomes a cultural moment. Shkreli saying that the best explanation of what happened was provided here by Autism Capital, who said, if Barron Trump really did launch the shitcoin, which we believe he actually did, the problem here in our opinion is that he took a half measure. We would advise him not to have done it in the first place, but if he did, the worst thing he could have done is a half in, half out. He needed to go all in or not at all. This waffling only cheapens the public opinion of him and affects those who he's associated with as well. If he owned it completely, people wouldn't be upset. If he didn't do it at all, people wouldn't care. It's the half in, half out that comes off as a scammy and cheap. Now, what is this about? Basically, there's some Trump shitcoin that was made apparently by Trump's son and Shkreli. Yeah, it's funny, insider trading, in the good old days was, having your the wife be like a senator, and then the husband runs a fund. This is the civilized way to do insider trading in the elite circles of the United States. I guess you could flip it as well. You could have the husband in politics and the woman running the fund, or whatever. But yeah, partnering up with people that have already gone to jail for fraud to try and do your insider trading, and you're the kid of potentially a new future president of the previous one. It's just not really very well thought through. I just feel like there's I don't like that drunk in Congress or wherever she is. Is she in Congress or the Senate? I'm not sure. Whatever. But I don't know. There's some class to insider trading. Gentlemen, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I can't disagree with you, because good, wholesome insider trading like Nancy Pelosi does, I mean, it's fair game, right? It's fair game, even though we hate it. It's nice and clean. But look, to your point, this DJT token, which was made on Solana, I believe it is. Yeah, this is honestly a terrible. It's a horrible look. Number one, number two. I just think it. Not that Barron had any credibility anyways, to a certain extent. He's just the son of Trump, right? But this is just this is just bad, right? It's a nail in the coffin, and it's embarrassing. So yeah, and at the same time, he's the father is kind of campaigning on Bitcoin.
I mean, it could be worse. It could be
right?
Hunter, right? Like it's
Eh,
relative.
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I just for me, this is kind of like it seems like par for the course, right? Like nobody seems to
What
like.
do you think? What do you think the U.S. public will care more about, smoking crack or insider trading?
Well, apparently they care more about insider trading.
But then why is Pelosi still there? It doesn't matter. That's what I'm
I
saying.
know
Is it all
it
about
doesn't. It's
how classy are you with your insider
so
trading? Is that what America cares about?
maybe it just has to do with what team you're on, right? You just have to be on the right team. It's not even about which one's classier. It's not even about which ones the public cares more about. You just got to be on
So
the
you're saying
right team at
it's
the
not
right
about
time.
morals. You're saying it's not about morals. It's about us versus them.
Maybe. I
Well,
just don't.
I'll
I mean, I
come
don't see
in
a
with
rhyme or reason. Oh, go ahead.
some alternative perspectives here. It's like I
Yeah.
think quote insider trading is it's a bit of a fiat crime in many ways because it's criminalizing various speech acts and information sharing that I don't know to what extent these things would actually be uh cared about in a sort of free and sound economy and society. Where I actually think this is bad is just the fact that it's like, well, you're creating another, like a meme coin or whatever, and this is bad for all the reasons that we know about these things as it is. Just we all know that. But I think the other thing is it's a very classless move, not because it's like not the classier form of so-called insider trading, but because it's classless in the sense of Donald Trump, for better or worse, has the national stage, and he is campaigning on effectively, as far as like his Bitcoin attitudes go. I have nothing to fault the guy with, in a broad sense. He wants to protect Bitcoin mining. He wants to protect self custody. He wants to strengthen Americans' position in that. He wants to free Ross, for crying
Saying the
out
good
loud.
words.
He's doing, yeah, he's his campaign at least is promoting a lot of ideas that I frankly I agree with.
Hmm.
Um I think when you have the kind of stage to promote ideas like that is a completely classless move, to distract it away from these core things that have the potential to shape civilizational history. Imagining the United States being able to wield a Bitcoin strategic reserve, able to actually clear out the national debt, solve inflation, have a free economy that protects people's financial security and all of that. All of these things. What a an amazing potential for any politician at this moment be taking up the mantle on. Now, we can all question which politicians could actually have the will to truly do what is right and make things happen. And I'm not trying to make that argument in particular, but we do stand at a time where a politician who does wish to do this, and they should, if they care about this country, if they care about the global economy as well, anyone who does want to take up that mantle, it is sitting there for them to
Hmm.
take up and run with and have tremendous success and change the course of history by steering the ship back onto the right course. To be on that, to be in that situation and then have it thrown off in any way by embarrassing gaffes like that, of a meme coin and such. It's embarrassing and it's classless, and I think it's very unfortunate to see. I think I think that it does reflect very poorly on both Donald Trump and his son Barron. And I think it was a completely unnecessary gaffe.
Right.
Um and hopefully that itself rights itself, and people learn from this. I think one potential benefit is there's no doubt in anyone's mind that this was a meme coin. This was not Bitcoin.
Yeah.
And I think it can be continued to be driven home that, yeah, this is what happens in crypto. This is par for the course with crypto.
Yeah.
And this is why any serious political maneuvering in this space, this broad space, as broad as you want to make it, needs to be focused on Bitcoin, because that is where the serious potential lies. And with less room for such gaffes and kind of grifts and so on and so forth. So hopefully everyone learns from this, and I just want to see I want to see our economy thriving on a Bitcoin standard. So
I didn't quite understand what all this meme coin nonsense was about, and so I tried to do some research. Let me this is what I found. Apparently, this is how meme coins work. So basically, if you have bad posture, if you're a male with bad posture, and don't get enough female attention, you can be a sucker for meme coins. Yeah,
it's
I
a good way
who knew?
to just fake thirst traps for your money.
I mean, it's pretty. It is totally pathetic. I mean, you guys know, like in the last 2 weeks, that there have been like several meme coin blowups, right? That were done with celebrities. This guy Sahil, I don't remember what his last name is, got all these celebrities to create a bunch, and they were legit, right? Legit in quotations. They created them, he scammed them, and then of course they went and deleted their tweets, shilling their stuff. So they were totally, and again, right, this kind of goes back to everyone's a scammer, but like these people had no shame in shilling this crap until they got scammed. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, well, no, now there's a problem because I got scammed. So it was perfectly fine that you were going to scam all of your fans, right? That was all good that you were going to, scam them. But
Yeah,
once you got grifted, it was bad. Sorry?
It's just completely disgusting.
It is.
I've heard a lot of, I've heard various steelman, shall we say, arguments for some of this stuff, and its claims around that it's a way to develop communities, because you're able to sort of rally around a particular meme and use this as a way to push a meme. But even I don't believe that at all, and it's simply not true, because and if it's a community, it's a really bad one, because communities should not fall as soon as one bad thing happens. That's a very bad sign for a community. But I also, what just disgusts me is what has always disgusted me with altcoins and meme coins and any of these things, is that it is distracting people from the long-term solutions to real problems.
Yeah.
And people letting the worst in them keep from focusing on these real problems. It is a good sign of someone that I simply don't want to be dealing with. I don't want to be around. They are not helpful to me, to my family, to anyone. They are just trying to be out there grifting. And I think you guys are like me. I'm here because I care about sound money and what happens to a society when it is robbed of a sound money,
Yep.
and what a society is capable of when it has a sound money. And I care about restoring sound money. And I don't care about anything else with regards to this space, and anyone who's doing other stuff. At most, I find it a distraction. At most, it becomes actual scamming and actual grifts, and completely odious, immoral, unethical behavior.
So, question: as the company in charge of doing the most other stuff in this space, Binance, how did you feel about them alienating potentially large numbers of their client base with their intern posting a meme that Magoo said would be deleted and then was?
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
I feel like I'm not sure I quite get this, but my understanding is the implication is that, like, essentially you have to use 2FA if you have darker skin. I don't quite understand like why, but yeah, a very, very strange meme that led Binance to apologize for the recent tweet that was apparently intended to highlight Binance's commitment to user safety and stringent security measures. And they think they clearly need a new intern that has the following qualities. Firstly, they must love the crypto community. They must be super talented in social media and understand global cultural taboos. Binance.
This certainly seems like a case where corporations should not try to meme too hard because they clearly don't know the memes. It's like, we all know that meme, and we know many funny applications of it. That use of it, I'm looking at it, I actually have trouble understanding the joke, even as
right, if you're gonna be offensive, you've got to at least be funny, right? Like, you can't be offensive and
be making a point. It's like we can all enjoy off color. I guess this is on color humor. But that makes
People
a point
of
of some kind. We can get a joke. It's like there's an old Seinfeld episode where he thinks that a guy converted to Judaism just for the jokes.
For the jokes, of course.
And he's he goes to the priest and he's, are you offended? This offends you as a Jew? He's like, no, it offends me as a comedian. It's like, that's how I feel when I see this. It's like, as someone who enjoys the art of making a good meme, I just like, this is just like a terrible meme.
It's an insult.
I don't even know what it's trying to say. So I can't even judge if it was, I can't even judge if it was like culturally insensitive or not, because I don't even know what the joke is.
So I just want to point out that Binance did not take responsibility for it. In that tweet, they're not taking responsibility. The messaging is that they threw their intern under the bus. That is one of the most incredibly unprofessional ways of backing out of that.
Do you think an intern is allowed to use the Binance Twitter?
Dude, it doesn't even make a difference. It doesn't make a difference. It's the framing of this whole thing. This is ridiculous.
I know.
Dude.
I don't mean you
great
think that, like, but I say like,
no, I know.
Yeah,
I'm just saying with you. I'm like, yeah, this is nonsense. It's this is so cringe. But I mean, do we expect better from Binance? People. Yeah, make good memes.
You gotta follow. You gotta know the template. Like, this to me is like, if it's not someone who just is culturally outside the realm of certain internet memes, so they don't know the ins and outs, which that can happen. It's almost as if like you gave it to like AI or something, and just like picked a random, like, what's a meme? Like, it grabs like a random meme template that has like a versus B threshold of some kind, and then you just like put in the things and it just spit out a random one. You gotta know what you're working with. You have to actually understand the cultural illusions that you're making.
That's right.
So shitcoiners, if you want to learn how to make memes, firstly stop being shitcoiners, but track Bitstein down and he will teach you. Okay, gentlemen, I have two more things. I'm going to try and shuttle through them. The first is a concession, seemingly, from someone who I think is clearly, like, this guy's clearly slightly smart about life. Like, I think he's a bit of a he's definitely a shitcoiner and, like, has Silicon Valley bias. Naval. Perhaps Bitcoin is the true L1, the store of value, and every other chain is competing for L2, the medium of exchange. I kind of like the take. Like, are all of these other ones then therefore useful? No, I think he's actually, like, like they're all getting relegated. Like, how many of them are like better than Lightning? Well, they all involve trust, so none of them. Like, I don't know. I know some Bitcoiners that will argue that Monero is Bitcoin's best layer 2. I've heard people argue, I don't know, like Liquid, gets used. I don't believe that. Like, there are going to be scaling solutions to Bitcoin, but I think that we don't need extra tokens. Not even Liquid, not even eCash. I don't know. I'm waiting to see what happens with ARC, but like, to me, VTXOs seem like a better thing than eCash. Like, I don't want. I want Bitcoin to scale without fractional reserve as much as it possibly can, gentlemen.
Yeah, I think that's. I definitely think that's a good point. So look, I kind of have a hard time with Naval because he's really well spoken and he makes a lot of really good points. And I got to liking him a lot in the Tim Ferriss podcast where he and Nick Szabo were having a really good conversation. And I have a hard time with his takes because he'll make some good takes, but then he'll have some absolutely horrendous takes that make no sense. So
maybe his good takes aren't his.
I know, maybe they're not, but like I'll give him this one. Like I think that to a certain extent, yeah, he's probably right. But in terms of scaling Bitcoin, I think that I think we need to stop looking for the silver bullet. Like there's too many people looking for this one solution that scales Bitcoin. It's like, why?
Isn't that his point? Isn't that like they're all going to continue to compete as later? Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I'm conflicted. Yeah. I'm conflicted with him. He has me blocked.
I think there's good and bad.
Sorry, Bitstein.
What did you do?
I'm the one interrupting. I should apologize, but I would say that here's the good and the bad from my perspective. The good is that he's kissing the ring. It's always good for people to reiterate that Bitcoin is king when it comes to the next global reserve currency. It is not going to be any of these other coins. At best, we can imagine them as being something that people move into for the purposes of highly specialized types of transactions or something, if we want to be super nice. But when it comes to the next global reserve currency, the thing that everyone denominates all of their economic activity in, the king is Bitcoin. And so to see him kissing the ring, I can appreciate that very much. The bad, I think it's economically, very ignorant. I don't think that store of value and medium of exchange are as different as people often think. There is like store of value is like medium of exchange over a longer period of time. It's I want to have a medium of exchange, but I want one that I can also know that I can exchange well into the future. What he might be thinking instead is method of payment, which is slightly different. What is the actual method by which I pay at a given time? With that, I don't buy it. I think there's a lot of stuff going on in Bitcoin proper that is better, and as Walton said, does not require a new coin, which means a completely competing currency. And so I think none of them actually qualify as so-called L2s anyway, because even when you have a super centralized thing like Apple Pay is now on Bitcoin, that kind of thing, all of that is still denominated in Bitcoin, operating as a Bitcoin thing. It's not this, we're quote built on Bitcoin, but we have like all new fresh stacked coins or whatever. And so that's important. One thing I will say, you mentioned something on eCash. I still haven't had time to really dig into everything new that's happening with eCash, but eCash in general has been something I've been excited about for a long time. So to see it happening at all is just very exciting to me. You had this concern of VTXOs versus eCash, and one of the concerns was you don't want fractional reserve. And I totally agree. One thing that I think we should consider with the prospects of that is and this is not saying that, you know, one versus the other. I think it's just something that we should consider as a positive for eCash, is especially now that they're building themselves around Lightning, which means even faster movement of coins. So you can imagine,
Mhm.
like, hey, like you pay each other in eCash, but it's just seamlessly tied to Lightning as well. What that means is they have to constantly be able to interoperate with the Lightning Network. And it turns out you can't do that without actually having Bitcoin, without actually having Bitcoin on Lightning, and so on and so forth. And so I think that that could give a lot of free market, sort of free banking pressure on those banks to maintain full reserves, because otherwise you can have a bank run faster than ever, faster than we've ever seen in history. And those would get wrecked. And so I'd imagine that those pressures to maintain interoperability with Bitcoin, with Lightning, forces them in a position to maintain a lot more reserves than they otherwise would in sort of, you know, our clown world fiat banking system.
All right. Very, very good points. Walton, we got anything else for REKT, or is that it?
I have one final story, gentlemen.
Oh, okay.
And that is the REKT is the British Broadcasting Corporation, the BBC, the UK national MSM shit show. Here, the BBC coverage of Bitcoin since 2013. A tweet from Alex Gladstein showing the data. You can see the reporting on Bitcoin over the last over 8 years from 2013 to 2021. Yeah, pretty negative. Yeah, basically ever since Bitcoin grew out of its interesting infancy, the mainstream media has consistently hated on it and steered citizens away from it, characterizing it as risky and dangerous, huge failure of journalism. Yeah, MSM's kind of wrecked when we didn't know this. Like, this is kind of, you know, part why we do this, right?
You're in England. I'm not. Do people actually do they care about the BBC the way they used to?
Used to. Most people probably open up BBC at, like, most days. Certainly before Bitcoin. I did probably.
Yeah, I don't know if it's like, you know, here I would say like a lot of the you know, television stations have become just like boomer, like it's just boomers watching it, and not really like the everyone else. So I didn't know if BBC had become the boomer broadcasting
BBC, like,
corporation.
website was seemingly the kind of more objective place to go for news than going to newspapers, because they don't have advertising, and so they have what's called a license fee that essentially, like, everyone, it's like a tax essentially. People have to
Oi, mate, where's your television license?
Right,
You know?
I don't have one, but, like, yeah, you know about this concept, right? But it's so there was theoretically some impartiality, but then as these things go, they get funding from some political things, and so then, you know, or they get some they need more funding, right? And so then they, you know,
Well,
then write bullshit, I guess.
we also did have a guest who was a journalist, right? Who, in not so many words, did confirm what we've all been thinking, and that, you know, when you work for those organizations, they are going to point you to where your narrative is going to go. And I mean,
Yes.
look, you know, I think right now we can, you know, we can safely assume that this kind of like weird woke ESG type of conglomerate, I don't even know what to call it, right? It's like this ESG octopus, whatever it is, that has kind of like encroached on all of like essentially all these different news outlets and media formats. And it's just like, look, you know, for example, you've got Ripple that funds Greenpeace to shit on Bitcoin mining, you know, stuff like that. Like, this is insane.
To such great effect.
Yeah.
I'm joking, of course.
I know.
Like,
I was just gonna say,
like completely. It's completely like
we got that meme out of it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think it's going to be fun. I mean, they are just shooting themselves in the foot. It means anyone who is paying any modicum of attention starts to lose reliance on institutions that they should have been losing reliance on a long time ago. So I think it's generally good for people to be, I don't mind when they are not good at doing their jobs, because people who are better at doing that job, they deserve our attention more anyway. I I also think it's going to be interesting as Bitcoin does co-opt Wall Street. I mean, BlackRock, they're big Bitcoiners now, right? Like in an ETF sense.
Right.
So at what point do these advertisers that are basically they're getting dollars from these companies, as those companies become more and more reliant on Bitcoin themselves, we might see a shift. It'll be fun to watch that occur. But the important thing is that people do have alternatives online. I don't remember the last time I went to the BBC, which is interesting because I remember a time when BBC was like the premier sort of quote
Yup.
objective news source. They were also like a very high tech company. They were one of the first to have like a great mobile web interface. It was like a very great place for kind of the early mobile web and such. But hey, if it means people like us can be the ones to share what we think is true, I'm totally fine with that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Well, look, this is going to wrap up REKT. Thank you very much, Walton. Awesome REKT segment. Guys, we are going to move it on over to the Hopium.
The Hopium.
So, I don't pull up a lot of TA stuff, but why not? Somebody came into a Spaces this morning. They wanted to tell us about the delicate intricacies of the hash ribbons. Okay, so I figured, you know what? This is some good Hopium. Let's take a look at the hash ribbons. All right, so essentially what the hash ribbons are, it has to do with the hash rate. Okay, the average hash rate, they put them over a certain time span, right? Like a 200-day moving average, a 20-day moving average of the hash rate and stuff like that. And of course, historically you correlate the hash rate movements with the price of Bitcoin, and we're going to $20 million. You just have to wait and see. Okay. So yeah, here we go. He'll break it down in simple terms. When does Bitcoin recover? That's right, guys. We're dead right now at 63K, as Bitstein alluded to earlier. So we need a recovery. Okay. It's when weak miners die and hash rate recovers. This one is for the record books, as it's taking a lot of time for miner capitulation post halving. Probably can thank ordinal inscriptions boosting profits. So that's right, guys. Our bull run is on hold because of the inscriptions, because of the hash ribbons not doing the pattern they should do. So these are right here is the little hash ribbons, right? So you can see here essentially from the point where it bottomed, you can see where the price goes and inclines, and essentially it's been 61 days since this hash ribbon conversion happened last. So what does it all mean? Nothing. I don't know if you guys have any takes on this, but to me, I'm always fascinated by these correlations.
Yeah, I mean, it is showing real activity on the market. I think we've always known that there's times for minor consolidation and
Right.
capitulation through that. I don't know how much we're going to get from looking at this chart to be able to say anything about the future. But it's certainly interesting. The only chart I look at regularly is my halving tracker. That's where I get my Hopium. But yeah, I don't have anything specific on
not.
this. But it's it looks pretty.
Exactly right. It looks pretty. It looks like we're in the right direction. But this is kind of the point, guys. This is why this is Hopium. They put this stuff up, and you're supposed to look at this, and boom. Your eyes are supposed to light up. You're mortgaging your house. You're selling. You're getting rid of your kid's college fund, and you're dumping it all into Bitcoin because macharts.
I'm ripping out my kidney right now.
See?
I can go sell it.
See? All for the hash ribbons. All right, moving on. It's okay. We've got a little bit. Essentially, what happens is the hopium continues to increase, right, as the segment goes on. So the next piece of hopium, the hash ribbons, if that wasn't enough for you, here we go, guys. That's right. The Winklevi machine has just donated 30.94 Bitcoin worth over $2 million to Donald Trump to put an end to the Biden administration's war on crypto. So look, we talked about this, we discussed this before, right? He's a politician. He's saying the good words. We appreciate those words because we are Bitcoiners. To a certain extent, you know, like I can't fault the Winklevi for what they did, right? It's their money. They can do whatever they want with it. I mean, look, it's just more exposure for Bitcoin. Does it equal anything material on the bottom line? Of course not. Bitcoin's not a company, so yeah, you know, like we'll see what he does. We'll see if this $2 million pays off for them, right? Because they do own an exchange. They make essentially, I think it's arguable that, you know, they make their bread and butter out of that exchange. So they are obviously incredibly incentivized for some very pro or favorable crypto regulation in conjunction with Bitcoin regulation. Any thoughts, guys? Thoughts before we move on to the last piece?
The language aside, because we can all we all know exactly what needs to be said whenever we see the word crypto or whatever. But that aside, the fact that politics is like this right now, it's like if anyone in the world should be pandered to, it should be me. So I'm very happy when I see that sort of we'll say Bitcoin, but Bitcoin is at the center of such a big political circus. That that is a lot of money that they threw down, and one of the things in politics, I mean, people complain about this. We just saw AOC getting really mad about this, as there's basically crypto lobbyists putting a lot of money towards getting rid of, I think it was one of the people in the so-called squad, but I don't remember, because he was he was not favorable towards crypto regulation stuff, and she got really upset about this. And this is like this constant thing. We all know that money moves a lot in politics.
Yeah.
That is how you get the ears of politicians, way more than voting. Voting doesn't do anything, but if you go give money to them, well, they know who to listen to, because you've put skin in the game, and there's good and bad to that fact. But it is the sort of reality. So the fact that people are putting such large amounts of money down on this, that could, obviously there's the Bitcoin versus, crypto debacles that have to be worked through. But I don't know. I think it's great that politicians can see that there is a lot to be gained from being pro Bitcoin, and we're even seeing a shift on both sides of the aisle. Republicans have become, very, very pro Bitcoin, pro crypto. Democrats are kind of lagging behind, but they're turning into a bit of moderates and such. And so, yeah, I don't know. Money does talk. And so, I'm not going out and making political donations, but
Me neither.
I like I said, I like when politics is pandering to me. That's who
right.
politics should be pandering to. So I will take this as grade A hopium, political hopium at least, which is not as good as just raw economic hopium.
I agree. I do agree. Walton, any thoughts on this before we move to the last article?
No.
Yeah, I know it's a political hopium. It's okay. So here we go.
Like, politicians are good at saying what people like, right? Ultimately,
Yeah.
they're like that's what they're experts in. Because of money printing, political quotient is now the selector. You've heard me talk about this before. I'm not going to repeat myself.
Yeah, people like that though. I mean, I'm just saying it's there's shifts. There is a big vibe shift going on, and there's always room for the cynicism that I very much share. But finding where the signals are around that whole thing, I think is useful. And right now, we really are seeing a vibe shift towards a very pro Bitcoin electorate and political class.
Yeah, that's a good point. Okay, we're going to move on to the last piece of Hopium here, guys. This is the most elusive piece of Hopium this week. It all of a sudden just started to happen. Maybe it was Thursday that we started to see some rumblings. What am I talking about? That's right, Michael Dell, right? All of a sudden. So I see this tweet here from fellow Bitcoiner.
Is this Matt's brother?
Is this whose brother?
Matt's brother.
Matt's brother.
Yeah, Mike Odell is Matt
Oh,
Odell's brother.
No. This is Michael Dell. Good one, Walton.
I made a joke about this a couple hours ago on
It's
Twitter.
good.
It's like, yeah.
So,
right. Anyway.
So yeah, is this going to be?
I think Bitstein made the same joke, but I didn't see it until after.
So this is going to be big. How big? Really big. And of course, like, why is this Hopium? Because guys, I was digging all day today. I started digging into this last night. There is absolutely fucking nothing about Michael Dell and Bitcoin, okay? And before somebody chimes in and goes, well, you know, in 2014, yeah, I know, okay? I know he accepted a Bitcoin for payment. So, you know, like that's what would happen in 2014. And then in 2017, they had problems. And then for some reason, the Bitcoin payment thing didn't work anymore. So besides those two pieces of news, okay, we're just seeing these tweets from Michael Saylor retweeting Michael Dell, right? And we saw that tweet, you know, from fellow Bitcoiners. So I just think I'm sorry.
Well,
there's nothing.
I think you're underselling this.
I'm definitely underselling it because there's nothing there.
No, well,
Sorry, go on.
Also consider, like, I just want all the facts on the table.
Okay.
The other tweets that we saw. So Michael Saylor so he said, "Scarcity creates value."
Yes.
First of all, that alone is a very Bitcoiner thing to say, broadly speaking.
Bullshit. Like BSV has the same scarcity as Bitcoin. There's no value in that.
I'm not saying that it's the perfect statement. I'm saying that is a very Bitcoiner statement to make. It is because it's you know, just the 3-word kind of, like, you know, big thought, you know, like, oh yeah, scarcity.
If you said independently verifiable scarcity gives value, then I might agree.
I'm
sure that will have exactly the same memetic power and will get as much engagement.
What if he said impenetrable fortress of validation?
But you guys, you're missing this.
We are.
I think.
Sorry, Michael's here.
He's saying this, and this is like I said, is a very Bitcoiner thing to say, whether or not it's the best way to say it. He said it.
Okay.
Now,
yeah.
Michael Saylor responds, Bitcoin is digital scarcity. Great. And we're all like, yay, Michael Saylor is responding to someone, and everyone claps like a seal, and we're very excited. But here's where I think it's actually interesting, is when Michael Dell retweets that and specifically decides to show that tweet to over 700,000 people. Then he tweets out a tweet about the Cookie Monster, but it's the Cookie Monster holding a bunch of cookies with the Bitcoin logo on it. And it's like, that's intentional. I don't know what it means. I'm going to have fun with it. I want to think that he's making the smart decision. He is a smart and shrewd and very cutthroat businessman. It would surprise me if he was incapable of understanding the need to start getting Bitcoin on your balance sheet. So, you know, it would actually be disappointing for Dell. It would also be disappointing for the city of Austin, where I live, if one of its most, like, it probably is the richest person in Austin, is not doing what he can to improve our kind of local economy. So this excites me. Like I said, he's you know, he's from here in Austin. So this is just, Austin is the Bitcoin capital of the world. If he's listening, Marty had it right in there, but Mr. Dell, because I know you are a Bitcoiner and you're listening to PlebUnderground, your favorite Bitcoin podcast, come visit the Bitcoin Commons. We'd love to have you. We'd love to talk with you more about the future of Bitcoin and how it relates to Austin and Texas. And we have a lot in common about our University of Texas and being tech guys and all that. Come talk to me. If you're not fully there already, I will make sure you're there. And if you are there already, I'll make sure that I can help take you to the next level and truly understand this gift of digital scarcity that you have stumbled across.
So I totally love how you upsold it. I do appreciate that. I just want to make 2 points. So number one, there was no actual story, right? There was just that whole like tweet thing, which again, arguably could be the story, right? It could be the story.
Yes, there has not been any kind of official announcement and not even any kind of, shall we say, like official rumor.
Exactly. But on that, do you think that this is the precursor to essentially him announcing that Dell is going to be using the MicroStrategy playbook?
Well, it should be.
Right? Like that is the next logical step, right?
If Michael Dell is smart,
companies, closed source like tech companies going, hey, we're going to use this open source thing, but just still stay closed source and whatever we do.
Yeah, of course. But I'm just saying, like, it's about the landscape, right? Like, is he, the next logical step is that he follows that playbook, I guess.
As he should. They should. There's no company that shouldn't. You're shaking your head, Walton, but like
I'm shaking my head because MicroStrategy just copied a strategy that many of us have been doing as individuals for longer. Like
exactly.
They didn't invent this treasury strategy. Bitcoin is a savings technology, and like
exactly.
Okay, some corporates learned this. Well done. Like
no, but it's a good thing. We want that. We want more people. The more people that know what we know, the better it is for everyone, including us. And so if that's how companies like Dell need to be able to learn how it's done, they can't it's harder for a company to just like, oh, these PlebUnderground guys. I mean, they're brilliant, but they're talking about their families and just like small budget stuff. We're sitting on billions of dollars here. They need to learn is like, well, MicroStrategy, they figured out how to do it with billions of dollars. Let's go talk to them. And so it works its way up the food chain. We're definitely, we were here way before them, but if anything, that's validating us, and that we should be excited that it's. What was that?
Someone needs to teach Starbucks about Bitcoin and eCash. Starbucks hold roughly $2 billion of customer cash at any one moment because basically everyone's going to stop $10 on
drinking coffee
card.
Too.
Well, no, but they could buy Bitcoin and
that's what I'm saying.
Issue that in eCash. Because I think eCash is going to replace gift cards over the long term, and that's basically what that is, right? And like virtual balances with companies is a gift card. Yeah, I don't know.
That's actually, I mean, I
can't do that, but someone should do that.
They could basically actually fully pivot to being a financial company, which is important because everyone's going to stop drinking coffee because they want to stack more sats. And so they're going to need to, salvage their company somehow. So they should lean in to what they're truly good at, which is the financial stuff. But look, like I think it's great when these companies are doing it. Bitcoin is for everyone, and they have to learn from somewhere. You keep shaking your head. Do you not want Dell?
You
think it's a bad thing?
You trigger my autism. I can't help it.
But
it's more about the cheerleaders. So it's not about trigger. It's the thing is this, right? We absolutely want companies. It's funny how the Hopium is becoming the most contentious segment when it's supposed to be like the happiest. But obviously it's good that these companies do this, right? Yeah. It is good. Nobody's complaining about that. We're Bitcoiners. We want them to hold Bitcoin, of course. But it's placing that outsized importance on something that doesn't actually move the needle, right? So it is this big spotlight that is shown on this thing, which is really not actually that big. I get that it's the small, right? It's the drops in the bucket, and eventually the bucket fills up. But the point is that I don't think we should necessarily be placing all of our hopes and dreams on each individual drop. And that's
I don't think that
cheerleaders do. That's what the cheerleaders do. So however, that's kind of
However, so Mark Andreessen once was describing his Twitter strategy, and it's much better than his crypto strategy. His his Twitter strategy is effective with follows. It's like the way he sees it is like he'll follow anyone for just like any like a random good tweet or something. He'll follow. So he follows tons of people. But if he sees one thing that's even mildly annoying, he'll just like unfollow, block, whatever. It's like it's on like a trigger thing. And I think that's a perfectly reasonable way to go about things. It's like I think that this is an exciting thing because it's a very obvious thing. They are sending signals in a way. It's like honestly, even if he's just has a personal interest in Bitcoin right now that he's like getting into, that shouldn't be taken lightly in the sense that it's like, he is a very large stakeholder in the economy. He here in Austin, he is a huge philanthropist. And so a lot of Austin institutions depend on his support. So the idea of him getting into Bitcoin could be very good for all of that. And I welcome that as a resident of this fine city. And yeah, I think that also, as you're shining a light on it, you should be very quick to cut your losses. Like we'll all have no problems if he comes out is like, oh, actually, I'm launching like Delcoin on Solana, like we'll all drop him, in no time at all, and it doesn't, and that's fine. In that meantime, though, because this is so obvious, it does give us a chance to go through. It's like, why is this actually a completely obvious move for a company like Dell, and use that as an opportunity, as fleeting as it may or may not end up being, to be able to teach why this is actually a good thing that should be happening. And if it doesn't happen, that's a tragedy, and we should all go make fun of Michael Dell for not picking up a completely obvious strategy. So I like to always look, I'm sure you've seen my meme talk, always be bullish. This is one of those cases. It's like when I see this, it's like I will be bullish until there's reasons not to be bullish.
Based. Yeah, I appreciate that take, man. I appreciate that take. And guys, this is going to wrap up the Hopium. It's also going to wrap up this week's episode of Pleb Underground. Bitstein, one more time. How can the fans reach you?
Everyone can find me on at X, Twitter, whatever we want to call it these days, at Bitstein. And you can also find me on Noster, and come by the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute at nakamotoinstitute.org.
Absolutely awesome, guys. Like I said, that's going to be in the show notes. Wraps it up for us. Don't forget to check us out on our audio-only platforms, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. If you want to stream us sats, check us out on fountain.fm. Walton, what do we do?
Shitcoins.com. Please like and subscribe. We will see you next week. Peace.
Peace.
More toxic than the most toxic Bitcoin